Good evening, everyone. I hope my screen is visible to all, and I have seen some beautiful responses in the chat box flowing. I would encourage you all to take 1 more minute till I'm talking about the series. You can still go onto the chat box, introduce yourself, and tell us what you are excited about the most in this month. Moving forward, as this is the sixth webinar in our series of 15 Sparks of Change, I'll be sharing the little bit context about this series. Firki has organized a special 15 webinar series to celebrate Teach for India's 15th anniversary. The series 15 Sparks of Change will feature exceptional alumni that have made an exceptional change in the field of education. And through this series, we aim to touch upon three major themes. First, being preparing future educators. Second, being bringing innovative teaching and learning approaches to you. And third, being leadership and management in education. To make this experience very smooth and seamless for you, I'll be taking you through some of the features that you can use in the Zoom while attending this meeting. So first, there is this unmute button, mic button, which you can click on to unmute yourself. Please use it when speaker asks you to do so, or if you have any question or queries or any thoughts to share. Next up, we have the video button next to it. You can click onto the video button to switch on your video. In case you are facing any bandwidth issues, it's okay to keep your videos off. To the extreme right, we have the chat window button. You can click onto the chat window, put in your thoughts, your emotions, your questions, and I'll be here to curate your questions and take it to the speaker. Finally, welcome to the webinar, Teaching as a Practice of Weaving Wholeness. And I am Vani, and I'll be the host for you this evening. While we are engaging into the webinar, there are a few norms that we'll keep in mind. The first being, we request you to keep your cameras on for effective interaction. To avoid any kind of disturbance, please keep your mics off unless speaker asks you to do so. Or if you have any question, please raise your hand or put it into the chat window. Please participate enthusiastically because this webinar is for you. Take active notes that you want to capture your learnings with. So take active notes of your learnings. And last but not the least, keep it as a safe space. It's time to meet our speaker right now who is with us. We have Romana with us. I think we can see Romana on the screen. Giving a little bit introduction of Romana here. Romana is a global education leader and a presence-oriented facilitator. She has co-founded an organization named Kizazi, which is a non-profit organization, and it works with a mission to develop and implement and codify breakthrough school models. Her experience spans over around 2 decades in this field, and she has worked in the fields of mental health, education, peace building, social entrepreneurship, and leadership. She has been a Salzburg Global Seminar Fellow. She has been a Teach for India alum. And she has also been a teaching assistant for presence-oriented psychotherapy diploma. Romana has integrated all her experience over these 2 decades into her first book, which is known as Weaving Wholeness. And in this particular webinar, Romana will be speaking about her book and the wisdom that is inside that book. Over to you, Romana. Happy learning, speakers, and I'm really looking forward for the learning experience that you are going to create for us, Romana.
Thank you. Thank you, Vani. And thank you, Firki, for having me here. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Namaste. Good evening. and welcome to this space. I'm looking forward to sharing with you my first book and sharing maybe a few readings from it and some of the things that I have learned working with children and working with teachers over these years. I was thinking about where my journey began with Teach for India, and like Vani said, I was a fellow in the very first cohort in 2009, and uh, and today I see so many of the students that I taught when they were in grade two, now adults. Some have joined the fellowship, some are uh, theater directors, some have become artists, many have joined different companies, and so it feels really lovely to have seen one generation of students. And as teachers, many of you know that feeling when you see your children grow up from when they were little in your class and now they are adults and then they start having their own families. So it's lovely to remember what it was like then. And I think when I joined Teach for India, that connecting with children was the most important gift that the fellowship gave me. Spending that time every day for 2 years with the same group of children and getting to know them, their families, it really showed me how joyful children can be and how sometimes as adults we just forget that. And so every time I'm feeling not so joyful, it always helps me to just remember children and remember what it was like to play as a child, to enjoy things as a child. I think the fellowship also taught me how difficult teaching is. It's a very complex profession. My mom has been a professor all her life, and I would always see her working very hard, even at home. And only when I became a teacher, I understood, oh, this is how much happens in a teacher's life outside the classroom, in the corrections, in the planning, in the thinking about lessons, in the preparing exams. And so the fellowship really helped me become more sensitive to what a teacher's life is like, and also the school. I've spent after the fellowship, I continued to work with schools at Teach for India, and then I started this NGO which works globally. And so I started seeing many schools in different parts of India and in different parts of the world. Uh, and I began to realize school is such a complicated place. There's so many things that are happening. There's so many people. And we spend so much time there. Many teachers are teachers, career teachers. You're teachers for your whole life, and you see so many children, but to make any change in a school, it's almost like a complex machine. You can't change only one part. The whole school has many rules, many expectations, and many times those rules are not always in our hands as teachers or as principals. And so I really began to wonder, okay, when we have to transform schools, Firki talks about this, Teach for India talks about this. How do you do that? It's so complicated. Where does it really begin? And so that's been one question I've been asking. And at the same time, I also realized that across the world, there are so many things in the way we teach and what we're teaching children that have remained the same. uh, from the time that I was a teacher in 2009 in school, even till today when I go to school, it's very similar. The syllabus, the curriculum, the kind of pedagogy. But the world has changed so much. Uh, COVID came and went. Maybe it hasn't gone also. Uh, wars have come, the climate crisis, we keep seeing news of fire over here, a big earthquake over there. But when we go to school, it's like we've forgotten all of that outside. And so that also began to confuse me. कि ये हो क्या रहा है? What's happening here? And why this disconnect? That these have been some of the questions that I was asking, and then one day I sat down and I started writing. And after 2 years of writing, I've written a book, and I was trying to really ask these questions, saying, when the world is changing so much, when children are so different, their identities are different, caste is different, religion is different, across the world, their race is different, but education same hai. Something was feeling कि this ये सही नहीं है, this is not making sense. So I started asking that question of what should education be, and how does education really meet every child, each child. So today I thought I'd share a few readings from the book, and invite everyone to do a little bit of reflection so we can just see and learn together from your experience as teachers with all the children that you have worked with. And I want to share a few things that I have learned, and see if that resonates with you, and how you might take it into the classroom, or if you have a suggestion to give me that would help me learn more and take it into my book. Um, so that's what we'll talk about today. And so to start, maybe we'll just take a few moments and just settle down wherever you are. If you've got something to take notes on, if you'd like to get some water, maybe just taking 1 or 2 minutes to just settle down into this space. And so much I've already spoken about what we'll talk about today. So maybe just taking a moment to connect with your breath and just asking yourself, how was my day today? I'd invite you to just listen in to your heart, and see what your heart wants to say about how your day was. And please do share it in the chat so we can get to know each other a little bit. Yes, February is a time for gardening, for many new beginnings. Yeah, people are feeling their day was great, energetic, lively, filled with fun. That's great. Amazing. So please bring all of that energy into the session and keep engaging on the chat. So great. Everybody seems to have had a really good day. Busy and happy with children. Yes, as planned. Okay. So now we have come into the session. And because this session is about children, that's my second invitation to you to think about a child that is in one of your classrooms, or your school or your community. And just let that child come to your mind. Just think of one child. Maybe it's a child that you're struggling with, maybe a child that you're really trying to help but you can't understand. तो एक बच्चे को आने दो मन में, let one child come to mind. Just think about them, what you know about them. Yeah, many times when we have to think of one child, we think about the child that we really struggling with. We don't know how to support this child. And in the chat, don't put their name, but just put their age. So then we can get to know also what is the age group of children that we are thinking about today. So how old are they? उनकी उम्र क्या है? Or what class they're studying in? Hmm. Okay, so from 15 years to grade 1, so about 6, 7 years, 11 years. And let's just imagine that all these children that we are thinking about that are in our hearts, we'll just bring them into this space as well. That these are the children that we want to think about as we listen to this session today. And in your own notes, in your own books, you can continue to write what you know about this child. And we'll start with this first question. Just how do I see this child? What do I know about this child? What do they like? What do they struggle with? And put this now in your own notes. And one main idea in my book is about seeing the whole child. So we'll explore this idea. How do we see the whole child?
ವಿಡಿಯೋನು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ.
So now, as you're thinking about this child, thinking about what you know about them, think about what you know about their life outside of class, outside of school. उनकी जिंदगी के बारे में, what do you know? And again, just for your own notes. Maybe there are some things you don't know. That's okay. You can just write those as questions. Maybe, okay, I don't know what this child does when they go home from school. So you can just write that as a question. What does this child do after school? And as you're reflecting, I'm going to read two short stories about children. And as you listen to these stories, I'd invite you to allow your mind to, to connect with you. Let it connect with your heart. आपके दिल को छूने दो. Let it and see क्या उभर के आता है आपके अंदर. Maybe you'll get more information. Maybe you'll feel some feelings. So just allow it and we'll see in our reflection what comes up. So think about the child, that child who you spend many hours with on Monday after school, teaching them addition. You give them a short quiz on Tuesday morning, but they got all the sums wrong. You ask them to wait after class again. Think maybe you'll teach them again. But you ask, what happened? They say they have a very bad headache and they can't remember only anything. They can't remember what you taught yesterday. They can't remember even from this morning what happened in the test. Just their headache is very bad. And the next day on Wednesday, they don't come to school. That child who woke up and heard fighting going on in the house about whether we should borrow money again or not. There was one quiet moment, so they asked for milk. Said, "Can I have my milk, please?" And instead, they heard back an angry voice, "There isn't any left." Quietly, this child walks to school and they sit in the back of the class. They start doing their work. Then their partner asks, "Can I share your eraser?" And the child gets very angry and says no. And that child who was dragged away from their friend's house and was told, "Those people are not like us. They pray to another God. You can't play with them." Now this child will see this friend as an ex-friend, as the other, because they're different. This child doesn't understand what is different, but somebody bigger than him, somebody older than him said this is not okay. So they listen and they begin to internalize this idea that, oh, I am different and that ex-friend is different. But here, different became exclusion. So as you're listening to these stories, are you connecting them with any children that you teach? Any children that you know? Maybe not same to same. Yeah. And can you begin to see maybe some identities behind these stories? Maybe whether this is a rural or a urban story, whether this is a female child or a male child or a queer child. Maybe you can begin to see the religion or the caste or the ethnicity of this child in this story. And so again, thinking about the child that you're reflecting on, do you know what their lived experiences are? Where they come from, what they do all day? What are their identities? Do they experience any discrimination? Maybe you know, maybe you don't know. We're just asking ourselves. हम बस देख रहे कि हमें पता है नहीं पता है बस. And now asking yourself, okay, how am I feeling thinking about these questions? We'll put some feelings in the chat. How are you feeling? महसूस क्या हो रहा है आपको ये सवाल सुनने में, ये सवाल अपने आप से पूछने में? What are you feeling? thinking about these questions, hearing these questions. Yeah. Just some feeling words. Maybe you're feeling, yeah, maybe it makes you sad. Yeah. Maybe it makes you confused or a little angry. Maybe you're wondering why is Romana asking me these questions about children? Yeah. Yeah. And we're trying to understand कि हो क्या रहा है? What is happening with children? What is happening nowadays in society that this is happening with children? Yeah. How to deal with these situations where I'm seeing your question, Shweta. We'll come back to it. Yeah. Yeah. And we're just allowing that. Okay. It's okay. कि हमें एहसास हो रहा है कि कई बार हमें बहुत कुछ पता नहीं होता है अबाउट चिल्ड्रन. कई बार पता होके भी हमें समझ में नहीं आता है व्हाट टू डू अबाउट इट. And that's why teaching is such a difficult job. So I'm just acknowledging that and saying, yes, this is when we begin to see all of this that our children bring into school. Then we begin to also question, yes, like Namrata is saying, how did we learn these things? And then we start thinking about, okay, what's happening with parents? What's happening in society? And so when we start seeing this whole picture, ये पूरी कहानी कि ये बच्चा सिर्फ एक स्टूडेंट नहीं है, ये बच्चे के पीछे behind this child there's a whole family, there's a society, we are all part of that society. And underneath all of that, there are our values. Like someone said, these are uh, different values where we are learning to make differences. And so this whole thing is what in my book I talk about as context. क्या हमें ये सारा context हमने देखा है, हमें टाइम नहीं मिलता है, तो हम कैसे देखें? How do we see this full context of children? And then when we see this context, then when we ask ourselves कि education का मकसद क्या है? What is the purpose of education when children are going through so much? लेकिन जब वो school आएंगे, when they come to school, they leave all of this outside the door and only the school bag and the books and the exams becomes the focus. And that is what we're trying to ask कि school के अंदर ये जिंदगी क्यों नहीं आती है? Why does it get left out? So what does each child need from education then? And so here I began to ask myself this question, and I wrote this little piece. All the years of schooling are focused on trying to become someone else instead of being about discovering who one is. What if we started our starting point, clean slate, someone said, what if our starting point was to consider human beings as whole from the beginning, from conception? They don't have to improve, they don't have to be fixed. They don't have to be made into something. They are whole from beginning. Each child brings with them a unique way of understanding and seeing the world, a unique way of coming to school, showing up, and expressing themselves in the world. Each child has their own values, they have their own life skills. Can we see them in school? Today's school life is very boring, yeah. So, how can school be a place where each child's values, each child's life, learning, way of understanding has a place that we can celebrate? So, again, just thinking about your own life, thinking about where in your life do you feel like you can show up just as you are. आप जैसे भी हो, आपके fullest potential में, आपके personal value system में, however you are, you can show up when you are fully whole. Where is that place? Is there maybe one relationship जहाँ पे आप ऐसा महसूस करते हो? क्या कोई एक रिश्ता है या एक जगह है जहाँ पे आप अपने आप की तरह just as you are, you show up, you feel whole. Just pausing for 1 minute and asking yourself, where do I feel whole? Is there an activity or a relationship जहाँ पे आप अपने आप को महसूस करते हैं as whole, as feeling full? Yeah, when someone accepts you, thank you, yeah. And just see each other's answers in relationships, in painting, in cooking. Yes, children and teachers are overburdened today. Don't feel interested in coming to school. So we're not feeling whole in school, even as teachers. In school, I feel happy because children share their own feelings. So यही answers that you all are giving about relationships and about these activities. This is what I found in all of the work that I was seeing happen in different schools. I give my time when I speak to children, when I enjoy joy. Yeah. Okay, when we create time for self-discovery, there are three things that I found help us to feel whole. One is when we have time for self-discovery, for our own learning, for our own joy. तो हम बार बार ये नहीं कहते कि improve करो, this you have to fix, this you have to get better. But what if we started asking children, what are you learning about yourself? आपकी superpower क्या है? What is your superpower? What is your gift? When do you feel joy? Yeah. And so in some schools, there is a lesson that we have started where children spend time just choosing what they want to do. for this 30 minutes today, what do I feel like doing? What do I want to explore? Do I want to paint? Do I want to do art? Do I want to write? So, a self discovery time. Yes, active listening and communication. This was the second big lesson for me. That when in school, how do we create time for us to learn to be with each other? Togetherness. So if the first one is getting to know myself and self-discovery, creating time in school for self-discovery, the second one was about togetherness. How do we create time in school where children learn to communicate with each other, listen to each other, and solve difficult problems together? That was really important. Okay, very often, I remember when I was in school, we used to have debate competitions. And in debate, we are trying to say, okay, this is my point, and my point is the right point, and this is what is correct. And so almost we are fighting with each other. But we didn't, and that was a competition. So who was the better fighter? And you got a prize for that. तो हमने सीखा नहीं कि एक्चुअली जब डिफरेंसेस है तब हम बात कैसे करते हैं. So how can we move from debate to dialogue? कि हम एक दूसरे के साथ डायलॉग कैसे करें, बातचीत कैसे करें, एंड बातचीत कैसे करें जब डिफरेंस है. So when children have a fight during break time and they come back, how do we respond to that fight? Are we asking किसने शुरू किया, who started it? Or are we asking हुआ क्या? According to you, what happened? According to you, what happened? And then can we teach children to solve that fight? So we move from separation, from competition to togetherness, to learning to communicate, to be creative, to listen to each other. And that's where we begin to teach children, okay, can you realize someone is angry? Can you see these feelings? How do you learn from each other's feelings? So in some schools, after recess, because सबको पता है recess में क्या क्या हो जाता है. So after recess, can we create time in school for just children to relax, to come back? So one school started this practice where after school, after the recess, they would just play music for 5 minutes and children would do some coloring, just quietly. Very simple, only 5 minutes in the timetable. लेकिन वो 5 minutes में it gives the child time to really settle down. And in the coloring activity, in the music activity, children find a way to reflect, to relax, and to settle down from whatever may have happened. So those are two things. One, creating time for self-discovery. What gives me joy? What is my gift? What makes me feel alive? And can we create time in school where children can choose their own activities? And then as teachers, we can reflect with them, ask them these questions. And the second one was about togetherness, learning to dialogue, to communicate, to solve problems together. And I'm just going to take a moment to read this chat. Yes, Shrikant, thank you. Yes, when I'm saying whole, I don't mean complete. ऐसा नहीं कि हमारी लाइफ में हमारी ग्रोथ में फुल स्टॉप है. That is not the wholeness I'm talking about. I'm saying the wholeness which makes us feel ke on the inside I am special, I am loved, and I am a gift. I am not broken. I don't have to fix myself, but I have strengths. And when I see myself with strengths, when we see each other with strengths, then we find confidence. We find motivation to learn. We're not scared because we feel confident that we are inside, we are whole. Yes, and thank you, Amit, that what you are mentioning is my third lesson, that the third idea is how can we be in service of the planet. तो हमारे geography lessons में many times we are taught natural resources are for the benefit of man. And so from the way we're teaching children about the planet, about nature, we're teaching them that this is something to use. We have to cut the trees so we can make a road. We have to dig here so that we can get oil. We have to break that so we can make a building. And so how do we change that? How do we start teaching in a nature-based way where we're asking children, कि how do you connect with the planet? आपका और ये planet का, ये धरती का रिश्ता क्या है? How can you serve the planet? Not take from the planet, but how can you serve the planet? And so where in the school day can we make time for nature? To just go out, to look at a tree, to feel a tree, or to bring nature into school, spend time with plants inside school, spend time looking at the sky, learning about herbs, learning about plants that are healing. So in another school I work in, they spend every morning, they start outside in nature. And they spend that time in nature, playing in the garden, playing in the field, and just enjoying. Just those first 15 minutes of the school day are spent in time outside in nature. In other schools, children are taking care of a garden. They've started a small garden. In many of our classes in primary school, we used to learn to plant moong and see how the moong sprouts and grows. But what if we continued that? Not just for one lesson and not only to study sprouts, but what if we learned to grow plants because they are life? And can we teach children that nature is life? And from that value, that we are here to serve the planet. The planet is inside us. हमारा और धरती का एक रिश्ता है of life. So these three ideas of self-discovery, togetherness, and being in service of the planet. This is what I have learned about from around my work with children and with different schools. And this is what I'm talking about in my book when I'm saying कि एक wholeness की philosophy क्या है? अगर हम schools wholeness के ऊपर बनाएं, then these would be the three ideas that we bring into schools. And so I'm just going to take some time to look back in the chat, and I know there were some questions Maybe Vani, you can send them as well. Uh, and I'd love to hear any reflections on these three ideas. Does it connect with you? Does it not connect with you? What do you feel as a teacher you can do even now with the syllabus and with the way school is? Is there any small idea that has come to you that you can take and take back to your school? Yes, thank you, Shabnam. Kindness for the environment and being aware of their actions. Yeah. And Amit, teaching as a conversation where students' voices, experiences, and perspectives are valued. Yes, there was a question about how to deal with a situation where parents don't listen to the teacher and only take advice of the child. One of the practices that our school started was they changed the way they did open day, जहाँ पे हम report card देते हैं when we give report cards. And they made that a time for the parent, the child, and the student, all three of them, to reflect together. तो वो टाइम एक बन गया जब हर इंसान, teacher, parent, and child, could take the time to say, okay, how has this past term or quarter, जैसे भी आपका स्कूल का प्लान है, how has this past month been? What worked for us and what didn't work for us? So that conversation, after some time, it began to change that relationship जिसकी आप बात कर रहे हो, where parents don't listen to teacher and only listen to child. Because we started giving parents a space to talk together. And all three perspectives were heard. So this togetherness that I spoke about, learning to talk and learning to communicate and solve problems, that became a practice that we do even with parents. So then parents start coming to school more, not just once a year for open day or once a quarter for report card, but more often. So how do we create more structures जहाँ parents भी आए school में, parent, teacher, and child in another school? We started doing these community celebration days. तो उसमें कुछ agenda नहीं है, मीटिंग नहीं है, ऐसा नहीं कि ये डिसीजन लेना है, but families come, they bring food from home sometimes, teachers bring music and students come and they bring themselves and their work, and these three as a class की community बन जाती है and we just spend time together. आर्ट एक्टिविटीज करते हैं साथ में, या कोई नेशनल डांस है तो डांस करते हैं साथ में, या गेम्स. So these ways become ways to build that relationship and really learn to listen and connect with each other. And then that problem of not listening to this one, not listening to teacher or not listening to student, that begins to change because we get to know each other. So really creating more time for child, parent, teacher dialogue, not a one-way update, but a dialogue. Yes, thank you, Sunanda. Togetherness even with parents. So parents also know, yeah, how is this child in school? And again, how do we show also parents the child's fullness? Not only that this child is naughty or this child is not studying in this class, that is maybe there, but also this is what this child is great at. This is what this child's strengths are. So creating that time with togetherness, so they're vulnerably listening to all sides of the story. Thank you, Shabnam. This question about technology came earlier also, that children are spending so much time on their mobiles. that they don't actually know what they enjoy? Do we guide them into certain activities? Yeah, does anybody else have ideas? How have other teachers helped students find out what do they enjoy? How have you dealt with this technology and too much time on the mobile? Maybe some other teachers will have some ideas you want to share to Shabnam's question. Yeah, sometimes we just have to make a rule around mobiles nowadays, yes. Role play scenarios. Shabnam, do you want to give an example of a SEL activity or an integration? Someone can come off mute also and share if you'd like. What are ways you have tried to help children find out what do they enjoy? Anuradha says drawing and painting activities, drama. Yeah, and maybe if any teacher, anybody here would like to share, have you found a way to deal with mobiles and technology? Thank you. So many ideas. Dance the most. Choreograph a dance on Teachers' Day. Yes, and maybe when we ask them to dance, we can give them all the options. Some students can dance, some can create a poster, some can create a, a video on their mobile phones. So they also learn to use those for more purpose. Puzzles. Yeah. So self-discovery, you can do different activities and then asking the question. I think we're not used to the question of what am I learning about myself or what is special about me. So sometimes it takes a few months, but making it a practice कि हर फ्राइडे को हम 15 मिनट के लिए इस पे एक्सप्लोर करेंगे कि what do I love about me or what is my gift, what is special. Yeah, and then technology for reinforcement, making projects with the technology, giving them specific apps like Duolingo for language. And we can take one last question if there is. So maybe one last minute then for us to reflect on what we're taking from this talk, any idea that we're getting of these three things. And just taking a moment to see wholeness. What does wholeness mean for you? I would love to know from all these different stories I'm sharing, what does wholeness mean for you? And if you want for 1 minute, you can just close your eyes. And just asking yourself inside, asking in your heart, अपनी अंतरात्मा से, अपने दिल से, what does wholeness mean? and see if you get a picture of something like a metaphor or a image. If wholeness was something in nature, or if wholeness was an object, what would wholeness look like? And if you have an idea, a picture, or a word, wholeness का मतलब क्या है आपके लिए? wholeness महसूस कैसे होता है आपके लिए? You can put that in the chat. There's some more ideas are coming, and some beautiful examples are coming. Unity, accepting all, like the universe, good things, a circle, excellence, feeling positivity, contentment, gratitude, about loving yourself, accepting yourself, understanding your value, forgiving yourself, approaching each student as a complete individual. And so again, just bringing that child back. जो भी बच्चा आपके मन में था when we started, just bringing that child back. And holding the same wish for them. That wholeness is for you. Holding that same wish for them. आपके दिल से उनके दिल तक आप ये मैसेज भेज रहे हो, आप ये भावना भेज रहे हो. Engaging everyone with love. Where everything is connected, I feel whole and strong. So just we'll take one moment. Imagine we're all in one big circle, and all the children that we started with at 5:30, all those children are inside that circle, and we're holding this wish for them. हम अपने दिल में ये उम्मीद रख के बैठे हैं उनके लिए कि they feel love for themselves. They feel connected with all their parts. Thank you for all these beautiful chats and reflections. And as we come to the end of this session, there's anybody who wants to unmute, you can do that. And as we close, I'm going to share in the chat a link to where if anybody is interested, अगर आप interested हो मेरी book में आप ले सकते हो, pre-order कर सकते हो. And especially for the participants of Firki, हमने few days के लिए एक discount रखा है, तो मैं link डाल रही हूँ chat में. If anyone is interested, please, it would be lovely for you to receive the book, and I would love to hear your feedback and your reflections on this talk and the book. I'll also put my email ID in the chat. 40 मिनट में हम इतना ही कवर कर सकते हैं, लेकिन एक बार किताब बाहर आ जाएगी, वंस वी लॉन्च द बुक, इट विल रीच यू बाय अप्रैल में। उसके बाद हम एक बुक क्लब शुरू करेंगे, जहाँ पे हम और डीप जाएंगे। तो व्हेन we'll meet together for many sessions. If anybody is interested, again you can write to me or buy the book, and then वो book club में हम और गहराई में ये सारे चीजों पे, ये सारे टॉपिक्स पे और चर्चा करेंगे और प्रैक्टिस करेंगे। That's my email. Yes. Thank you so much for joining and for listening. Vani, is there anything you'd like to close out with?
Thank you, Romana. That was really beautiful and a very calming session, I would say. I got so invested in the prompts and myself. I was reflecting over every word that you were saying. What does actually wholeness mean as a human being, and how do we inculcate that within the children we are working with? Beautifully said. And yeah, I am eagerly now, like, I'm really excited for the book to come out and to go and just quickly get it and read the whole book. Thank you, dear participants, for joining us for this webinar. Um, we have already put down the feedback form link in the chat box. So you can go to the feedback form link, you can fill in the feedback, and then you can access your certificate. The link to the book is also present on the portal itself. So when you log in and you see the feedback, under the feedback form, you can see the link to the book. So you don't have to worry about the book or the link about the book, where to find it. So yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. Really nice session, Romana. Thank you. Really grateful to do this session with Vicky.
Thank you. Thank you, Firki, and thank you everybody for joining. Have a good weekend.